What is good, my ex-homies? It's your boy Jacob Gooden. We are back for another week of the Ex-Homeschoolers Club, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing up a homeschool kid. This week, my friend Stephanie is joining me in the clubhouse. Now, Stephanie, I've known Stephanie for a long time, okay? And her family are some of my nearest and dearest homeschool friends. But Stephanie is going to share all about her homeschool experience, transitioning out of that, getting married, having kids, homeschooling her own kids for a few years, and now them transitioning into public school and what she's kind of learned in all of that experience. It's a fun conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy. Do me a favor. If you enjoy this episode, share it with a friend, okay? Shoot them a text, shoot them an email, shoot them a DM, whatever you got to do. Send this episode to them, and so they can check it out for themselves. And with that, let's jump into a conversation with my friend Stephanie. Well, Stephanie, welcome to the Ex-Homeschoolers Club. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. We've known each other for a very long time because, well, you babysat me.
I did.
I don't know if it's necessarily babysitting because I wasn't totally a baby, but you would come hang out with my sister and I and take care of us when my parents would go on date night or,
Yep.
have something fun. So anyway, we've known each other for a very long time. You've seen me, I'm not even gonna go there. Wait, but you've seen me as a little child. You probably have some stories that you could share that would totally embarrass me.
We'll keep those saved later.
Yeah, but you also homeschool kid, bigger homeschool family than mine, and we're definitely your whole family was very much like a part of my homeschool journey. But I would love do the quick breakdown for us of like your homeschool experience and walk me through day in the life at the house with the siblings.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was homeschooled all the way through my sophomore year of high school. And then I went to El Camino. My whole family, all my siblings homeschooled all the way through. They did the Achieve graduation. I believe I'm the only one who didn't do the Achieve. I got my GED after I dropped out of El Camino. I got my GED. But all of us were homeschooled basically all the way through.
Wow.
From the very beginning to Achieve graduation.
And there's 6 of you guys?
There's 6 total. Yeah, so I have 5 siblings. I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters. How to think about that.
Hey, it's okay. Sometimes I have to question how many siblings I have, and it's 1.
Right. Yeah, so I have 5 siblings.
Okay, very cool. So I didn't realize your brother, because you have an older brother, and then every other sibling is younger than you. But I didn't even realize that your oldest brother was homeschooled all the way through too. That's kind of wild.
Yep. He did the Achieve graduation, then went to VC, and then went to Channel Islands, and then he has a degree in history.
Okay.
And now he's in the military.
Okay.
Currently.
So talk to me a little bit about like typical homeschool day, because some people have the very like structured where mom and dad kind of build like a very like traditional school experience at home for their kids, and then there's like maybe a little bit more unstructured where it's like every day is going to be a little bit different. Which category did you guys fall into?
We fell into the very rare where homeschooling day was rare, very occasional actual homeschooling, very inconsistent. Where I would say on average, we probably did 30 minutes to an hour of school twice a week. It was very sporadic. My mom really had goals and dreams of like having routines and having everyone sit down and, be self-sufficient and do their schoolwork. And it just fell through the cracks. It never really became what she wanted. As an adult, I can look back and totally understand how that happened, how having 6 children and trying to homeschool each and every one, and then having your youngest daughter be disabled, like that is so much work. Totally understand how it fell through the cracks. So yeah, it was very sporadic and very rare that we would actually sit down and do schoolwork. Very not structured and focused mainly on math and reading. Those were the two subjects that we did.
I mean, hey, they're important, but I kind of relate to the like when we started homeschooling, my mom was pretty strict on. I mean, my sister was in kindergarten, so I mean, how strict are you going to be with a kindergartner? But like,
Right.
I was second grade. She definitely tried to give like a structure, and within a couple years, it kind of went out the window. I mean, we
Yeah.
had some structure to it, but it definitely went from like, okay, we're going to be sitting down at the table at 8 a.m. every day, and we're going to, 30 minutes for math and 30 minutes for
Yeah.
reading and 30 minutes for science. And, it went out the window pretty quickly where it became like, okay, we know we have to get all this done. Now it's just a matter of like when we get it done and
Hmm.
how we get it done. Um, but I know too, like, I'm wondering too, because I've been having more conversations with people who come from a larger homeschool family. And so, like, also, is there a level of like, 6 kids is a lot of kids to have in
Hmm.
your house. And like, we didn't outnumber our parents at my house. So, but I know that sometimes in those larger families, the older siblings then become like teachers and almost parents to like the younger siblings. Is that something that took place in your house?
Somewhat. Yeah. Not, we didn't take over teaching
Okay.
at all, but it definitely took over a lot of babysitting, a lot of keeping an eye on kids, a lot of making sure the chores are done and doing laundry and, that type of thing. But I wouldn't know how to teach because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah. But a lot of babysitting, a lot of being
Mhm.
responsible for the younger kids, a lot of if something happened, like one of us got in trouble, it would be like, well, you were in charge, so it's your fault. Type
Okay.
like the responsibility would fall on the person in charge.
Okay. So school wasn't necessarily happening a whole lot at your house,
Yeah.
but did you guys have any like extracurriculars or co-ops or anything else outside of the house that was maybe, I don't want to say more structured, but like maybe gave some semblance of some
It was
structure?
definitely more structured. But yeah, we did group solutions.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm I can't remember how old I was when we joined. It was before I went to El Camino, and that was my sophomore year. So I would probably say probably 13 to 15. I was 13 years old to 15. We did group solutions. And then that kind of forced us to have a structure. That forced us to actually have someone else hold us accountable that wasn't our parents.
Right.
Because, you know, what's my mom gonna do? Not much. Um, but having a teacher, especially a male teacher, I was like, oh, I have to read this book. I have to do this book report. So we had a lot of structure. There's a lot of my mom probably liked that where we were
Right.
had a teacher actually grade our paper. It was not something I was used to. Like I remember being so stressed out that I had to like read a book and do a book report because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to write a report. I didn't know how to like what the structures were, what the format was or anything. And so it was it was tough, but I survived.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting when I'm gonna call it like the comeback that like I think a lot of like homeschool kids who maybe have like that lack of education, like
Hmm.
the drive they then have when like they are put in a situation where it's like, okay, I have to deliver. It's maybe not instantaneous where it's like, yeah, there probably was some bad grades to begin with, but like you pick it up a lot faster, I think, than would be expected. Like if that makes sense. Like I heard this saying one time that was like it was like let's not totally worry about like something about like kids kind of not getting left behind but kind of like struggling, but then there's a point where sometimes it kicks in where they're like, okay, I
Hmm.
get this. And then it's like this rapid succession to get to the point where they're like, okay, now I'm delivering work that is actually like, I know how to write a book report or I know how to
Right.
do a science lab or something like that. So did you have that where you're like, it kicked in where you're like, no, or you just were like, I'm totally faking it and try to figure out
Yeah.
and maybe get a passing grade?
Um, let's just say I might have plagiarized some things,
Hey, we've all been there.
but I did take Mrs. Yip's writing class.
Okay.
I've just heard, that just popped into my head. I took 2 years of Mrs. Yip's writing. And so I did have some
Mhm.
structure, I guess, with
Yeah.
writing. Um, I know looking back at my writing, it was really bad, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's not real. But
You
I did not get to the point where I'm like, oh, this is clicking for me. Like
Mhm.
to this day, I still struggle with punctuation and correct spelling and writing and basically all forms of all the subjects, math, science, all that stuff. I still very much struggle. My kids are 14 and 12, and they have surpassed my threshold for education. Like everything they're doing now in school, I have no idea how to help them.
Wow.
So it is, luckily my husband is very smart and he understands all the math stuff. English reading, writing definitely clicks a little more for me because I
Right.
love to read. And so I'm able to kind of
Yeah.
weasel my way through that.
Hey, I
But
mean, you read enough books, after a while, you just like subconsciously start to pick things up of like, oh, this is how a sentence is structured. You know what I mean?
yes,
Like,
or like, oh, that's what that word is. Oh, okay.
exactly.
Like I've never seen that word before in my life.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, shout out Mrs. Yip because Mrs. Yip definitely, she was
Yes.
a big instrumental person for me too in like
Yes.
getting
Yes. She
my
was. Yeah.
my writing to where it was in
Yeah.
college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. She was the class that I plagiarized. Actually, it was an Adventures of Odyssey thing that I plagiarized. I don't
yeah.
know if I should say that, but yeah, I totally, almost word for word, a scene from Adventures in Odyssey. I mixed it into my story. So
Hey,
yeah,
what's funny, and not to go on too much of a tangent, but Adventures in Odyssey is like it's such like an A plus, like not I'm
and
not saying the
I
content
know.
of it, but just like the
Yeah.
delivery and the remembrance that we all have for it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's such a like I was talking to somebody recently and I was like, I feel like a lot of us got our love for like theater and acting
Hmm.
and like that kind of a thing.
Storytelling and just
Storytelling,
adventures and yeah,
exactly. Adventures in Odyssey.
I
So
say
if,
adventure. Yeah.
Dobson and Focus on the Family might not have done a bunch of amazing things, but that is one of the good things that they gave
That is
us
the
that
only one. Yeah, that is. Yep, I will give them that. Adventures in Odyssey was amazing. I to this day, I still there's still scenes from Adventures in Odyssey that my siblings and I will talk about
yeah.
and like quotes and stuff. And I'm like,
It
it's good.
it's funny because I will listen to audiobooks or like radio theater type things and I just always compare it to that and I'm like it's not as good. It's not as good. There's very few things that I found that are equally as good or even remotely as good. And so just like man, they dialed that in. Whatever they
Yeah,
were doing in that studio, they were cooking. So
they got it. Yep, yep.
I wanted to hit on. So you talked about okay, El Camino. For those people who don't really know, can you like quickly break down what El Camino
Yeah.
was?
I believe it has changed a little bit since I was there. But it's an independent study school where you go about once a week and you do one subject at a time and you kind of go speed run through that course and then you move on to another subject. And so
Okay.
you can complete like all 4 years of high school in about 2 or 3 years if you're really quick. So, and then you do take college classes at the same time, and those college classes count for double high school credits.
Right.
So that can also boost your graduation. But
Okay.
yeah, so it just required 1 day a week to visit with your teacher, turn in homework, and do your tests, and then everything else you did on your own.
And
Yeah.
how did that go? Like that transition
Um,
was that a transition that you chose of like okay I want to do this or your parents were like okay we're kind of like done with you like we need something different in your life and then how did like the overall experience go because you brought up doing GED so I'm
I didn't know I was being enrolled in El Camino.
okay
I didn't know. My mom, I was in the car with my mom. We showed up to the school. We walked in, and I was enrolled. I
okay
was sitting at the table with this teacher, Mrs. Hewitt, who was super nice. And I left with textbooks and how many chapters I needed to read out of this textbook. And I'm like, so I didn't know. I didn't know that I was being enrolled in El Camino until I
right
was enrolled in El Camino.
okay so big
So
shock
it was a shock to me.
yeah
Absolutely.
okay
I don't know what my mom's thought process was for it. I've never asked her. I probably should. And I was the only one who was also enrolled in El Camino.
Mhm.
None of my other siblings, my mom made them go to El Camino. So I, I don't know her
yeah
thought process behind that. But so I did El Camino. What was the other question?
How was that like experience like then transition? Obviously, you're independent study, so you're doing most of the work still at home, but like the classroom environment. I mean, you did group solutions, so I'm sure you were somewhat familiar with that. But like,
Yes.
was it a big shock or not really? Or was mostly the shock of like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I have all these subjects and textbooks.
Yes, that was the main shock was the actually being like, okay, here you have, 2 weeks to get through this, 500-page health textbook because how they structured that class that I took was like every like 4 chapters you took a test. And so it was just like you should read and then answer the quiz. And so you did
Right.
move through it very quickly. And a lot of kids who went to group solutions were actually at El Camino. So I
Right.
think that was a very common place for homeschool parents to set their high school age kids.
I don't know that my family ever looked at it. We looked at some dual enrollment stuff, but yes, it was very common because a lot of homeschool kids, there's kind of this stigma. I don't want to say it's a myth, but there was definitely this thinking of like homeschool kids getting into college is much harder than a traditional public school kid getting into
Mhm.
college, which
Yeah.
at this stage I don't know that that's 100% true, but at the time there definitely was that because even when I was going to
Yes.
college and I went 2014 was when I graduated, it was like I felt like I had to work harder than public school kids to get into college. So anyway, but my point being that things like El Camino, dual enrollment were, I think, really pushed in the homeschool community because it gave you that college credit where all of a sudden you weren't transferring in as a freshman where you had to prove like, oh, I've done all this work. You had already shown like I can take college level material, succeed, and so you should let me in, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was being enrolled in El Camino, I was a sophomore age, but I didn't have any homeschool credits to prove that I was a sophomore. So I was enrolled as a freshman
Okay.
when I should have been a sophomore. So I was pushed back a full year already
Right.
when I enrolled. So that was a bummer to be held back essentially for
It's
not having any.
frustrating, right? You're like, 15, 16, and it's like all of a sudden you're being told like, well, you can only do the work of a 14-year-old.
14-year-old.
It's like
Yeah.
that's not what anybody wants to hear ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a interesting.
So you also brought up GED and
Oh yeah.
doing that. So like what did was it dropping out of school and being like, okay, I'm just gonna do GED or like what was the decision there?
I was engaged. So I got engaged at 18. I got married at 19. And since I was held back, I wouldn't have graduated until I was about 20.
Okay.
So I kind of at that point was like, I'm an adult. I'm 18 years old. I can just drop out, get my GED, and just be like, wash my hands at school. So that was kind of my thought process behind it of like, I'm literally going to get married next year. Like, why am I here? I don't need this. And so I remember going to my high school counselor and be like, hey, like I'm done now. And they're like, oh, but you're gonna be labeled as a high school dropout. And I remember being like, all right. I did not care at
Right.
that time. And I had a good friend at church who was also getting her GED. And she was like, let's do it together. So we signed up and took the classes and then took the test together. And that's when I got my GED.
I don't know that much about the GED. Obviously, it's supposedly the equivalent of a high school diploma, if not
Yeah.
maybe a little
Yeah.
bit better. But were you were just like, I'm done with school. I'm just like gonna get like the high school level thing and then just like be done? Or were you ever thinking like, okay, maybe college, maybe something else in addition to that?
No, besides some classes at Ventura College, I never thought I would be
Okay.
going to college. Like, that was never in my future. Yeah, it was not in the cards for me. And I never thought I would. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get married. I'm gonna have my GED. I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. Was kind of my thought process of like, I don't need an education
That was gonna
because
be my
I,
next question was like, because like I was at your wedding. Um
yep.
shout out
Which
Ojai
was
Valley Baptist.
17, so it was 17 years ago on the 6th.
Oh my gosh, well
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
On the 6th of September or October?
September. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, yeah, congratulations. That's
Right. Yeah.
17 years. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But so the plan was, okay, get married, stay at home mom, have kids.
Homeschool.
Do the good Christian wife
Yeah.
thing, basically.
Yeah. Do what that was what I grew up like.
Mhm.
That is the thing. And so I was doing the thing.
And so you did end up having some kids, and you
Yes.
did homeschool them for a little
Yep.
while.
For 2 years.
How did that go?
It was hard.
Okay.
It was that was I may rewind a little bit. We went in to homeschool, like the idea behind it was we wanted to be the main influence on our children,
Right.
the main source of guidance for them was us and the church and Awana programs and all that. Um, we didn't think the government really had a place to educate our children because it's a secular world and they're only going to lead them astray was kind of our process behind it. Also the flexibility of homeschooling. My husband's family, big campers, love to camp, love, traveling. So that was also a big plus was the flexibility, the ability to take textbooks on the road and just be like, all right, finish like that. The flexibility, I think, is a really big aspect as to why we wanted to, and the fact that we wanted to be the main um, educators for our children.
That's a big. I mean, you poll homeschool communities and you ask them, well, what's the reasoning behind you homeschooling your kid? The majority of people, maybe this is, I think this number has gone down a little bit, but I mean, the majority of people, it's like the religion we want to
Yeah.
control, like, and that's not always like the worst thing in the world, but it definitely is like that's a big motivator for a lot of people, as
Mhm.
opposed to it there being the motivators of like, well, my child has a learning disability, or or like you said, flexibility to go on the road. Oh my gosh, I've
Mhm.
met so many people now who like
Oh, yeah.
RV and like that's they're road schooling, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's insane, but also
That's
like so
really
cool that
cool.
like you get to
Yeah.
go everywhere, um, in the country whenever you want, and like it's not an issue, and your kids are
Yeah.
getting a great education and also getting to see the whole world. And some people do the world traveling thing, and like
Mhm.
that's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Huge plus to the homeschool community for that one.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
so at what point were you like, okay, this is not working then? Like you said 2 years that you were like, okay, this is not working, or was there other reasons that you were like, okay, we need to send the kids to school now?
There was a handful of other reasons, but I think in those 2 years, I learned a lot about myself, a lot about how the lack of my homeschooling education, the lack of that, I didn't know how to homeschool.
Right.
Um, my only influence I had was a chaotic and non-structured homeschooling experience. So I didn't know how to create schedules and have a routine and be, you know, self-sufficient and get the kids going. That was really hard for me. And I did group solutions because I was like, oh, structure. And again, there's a handful of other reasons that I not totally comfortable going into, but
That's fine.
it was it was really hard to
Yeah.
do it and to have the responsibility of my kids' education on my shoulders, who I'm not educated in, very well. So it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of am I setting my kids up for failure for choosing to homeschool my kids for, just to so I can be the only influence on my kids when I'm not very educated. So I didn't think it was a really good experience for them. So I wanted to do something different.
There's this like, I think expectation, and even I had this, I think in high school, of like, okay, I'm gonna like get married and have kids, and then I'm gonna homeschool them because that's like what I knew.
Mhm.
And even though I went to public
Yeah.
school for 2 years, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. Like, this is like the better education. This is the better thing.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've realized like I think I could do it, but I definitely I I understand that like there are things lacking in my education, that like there are just huge holes where I'm like, I know that I couldn't fulfill this hole. And so that's in homeschooling, you need the co-ops and you need the support system to
Yeah,
help you
yeah,
with those
definitely.
types of things. But also, there's also public and private schools that like can kind of also fill those gaps where instead of having to also then have the pressure of you're also not only just mom, you're also teacher, you're
Hmm.
principal, you're like all these other things, all these other roles in your child's life. You can just be like, okay, I'm just mom, but I can also now be an advocate for them in school and be like, let's get you the best education to get you wherever you want to go. Because I'm sure your kids have dreams of like what they want to do and who they want to be
Yeah,
someday. Well, how do we get you there? Let's like actually
yeah,
figure that out and let me go on this journey with you as opposed to that just like, okay, I'm going to have control and I'm going to like kind of set you up to
yeah.
then potentially do the same thing that, my parents set me up to do.
In the moment when I was deciding to put them to public school or keep them homeschooling, I didn't know really why, not why, that's not the right way, but like now looking back, I can see like, oh, this is so much better for them. This was the right choice. They have their education has they're they're so much better off now in public school, their education wise, than they were when I was homeschooling them.
Mhm.
And so I think looking back, I can definitely say like I did make the right decision.
I wonder too, because one of the things you and I chatted a couple weeks ago, kind of preparing for this, but one of the
Hmm.
things we talked about was like public school being evil and that being a stereotype that gets perpetuated a lot in the
Hmm.
homeschool community. I think I have a little bit of a different perspective only because I went to public school for the first couple years of my education. So I never viewed it as like totally evil. I think I always viewed it as like lesser than homeschool because I was like, oh
Mm.
well, I felt smart as a homeschool kid. Like I had great opportunities and I'm like I would never have this in public school.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there definitely is that stigma of like public school bad, homeschool good, that kind of a thing. So did you have that? And if you did have that, how has that transitioned now that you're like, okay, now I got two kids that have been in public school for a while?
That was what we were kind of told growing up, that if they weren't Christian, they weren't good. Um, and public school, since there's no God in school, it was bad. My mom would use this example of if there is one rotten fruit, moldy fruit, and you put other good fruits around it, the good fruit is not going to change the moldy fruit. The moldy fruit is going to mold all the other fruit.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of the attitude towards public school. Like if you went there, you would become bad. You would become secular of the world. Um, you know, they would teach science. They would teach, evolution. And that was a no-no for us. So it, yeah, definitely grew up with the mindset of public school was evil because there's no God in
Right.
public school. And they were going to, everything they were teaching you was them trying to tell you there's no God. They're going to prove that there's no God. Evolution, creationism's not real, that whole spiel. And then just being exposed to things we weren't exposed to at home, like rock and roll music or drugs and cigarettes and drinking. So that like I think we grew up thinking public school was like those movies from the 90s where you're like, oh, the bad boys are smoking in the bathroom. Like that
Yeah.
vibe
Hmm.
was what we thought. We're like, oh my God, that's what all schools are. And now experiencing elementary school through middle school, and my daughter's now a freshman in high school. Obviously, nothing's perfect,
Right.
but I think it outweighs like her getting this education that she's getting now outweighs like the couple of rude friends that she's come in contact with, or like, you know, I have not seen anything in their schoolwork that I'm like, this is, or their homework that they've come home, or, oh, I do not agree with this. This is bad for them to be learning. Um, and I think it's really opened my eyes to that it's not again, I'm only speaking from my experience. It's been really good.
Yeah.
It's been very encouraging. All the teachers that we've met with, parent teacher conferences and back to school nights, they've all been so kind. So like you can see that they want the best for the kids that they are teaching. They have a passion for teaching, and they are educated. And I love that they have this drive to educate children, and they're doing a good job and they care. Like I just dropped my daughter off at school, but we dropped my son off first, and she sees her eighth grade teacher and she's hanging out the window going,
Right.
"Hi, teacher." Like she loved her teacher at her middle school. It's like that makes me so happy that she has fond memories of teachers and has a fond experience of schooling.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, you know, definitely outweighs the couple things that we've had, like bullying, or, like my siblings didn't bully me, or I didn't bully my siblings at homeschooling. Like I lived with my bullies. Okay. No.
You make a good point, because I think the other thing, my dad and I talk a lot about this, and I tell the story all the time. So people who listen all the time, they know that they know what I'm gonna say right here. My dad and I read the Da Vinci Code, and that was one of those things where it
Oh,
was like this opposing belief that obviously was really pushed in the religious sector of
mhm.
like, this book is evil and wicked, and then we
Yes.
read it and we're like, this is a
Yep.
fiction book, this is like national treasure, this is, hilarious, this is a great book. And so, but it sparked this kind of like conversation that we started to have around like, well, when things enter your life that you disagree with or that you don't believe in, you can have a conversation with your kid around those things,
Mhm.
still letting them be exposed to it, but also being able to reframe it into whatever your worldview is. So my
Yeah.
parents are Christian. They were able to say, okay, well, we don't believe this. We don't believe that, Jesus was married and had children and all these types of things that, again, it's a fiction book that we're talking about, but it's,
Yeah.
and so I think that's something that got missed a lot for the homeschool community that we grew up in, of like, there was that we isolate our kids, we put them in these very
Mhm.
Christian environments where everything is agree, 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 and everyone's on the same page. And so when they are met with the world, we're kind of unprepared, where like your kids maybe have had some more exposure to somebody who thinks differently than them or has different, beliefs, and they can actually like maybe have a conversation around it, and have a little bit more of a stance that they can like defend, about their belief systems. But it also opens up conversations in your house where you and your husband can be like, okay, well, maybe we need to learn about this, or something like that.
Yeah. No, there's been times where, you know, I my daughter will have friends over and I can hear the conversations they're having. And that's when, as a parent, I'm still very involved in my
Right.
kids' lives. I can be like, hey, like that's not a topic we're gonna talk about here. Like that is not appropriate. You're still stepping in and being very involved. Like I don't want to put out the impression that once my kid's in public school, I'm like hands off. Like,
Right.
I'm very much still involved. Like I met all their teachers. I still, very much involved in their education and what they're learning, and, still guiding them through that.
The other thing that you said that really resonated with me was like your daughter like waving at her eighth grade teacher and like being like, this is like, there's core memories there. Obviously, there's
Yes.
good memories, and that's kind of some kind of a mentor figure or just like
Mhm.
an adult figure in your daughter's life that like
Yeah.
they love and will be memorable. And like I have
Yeah.
people like that in my life that I'm very fortunate that my parents didn't isolate me totally, where I had those extracurriculars, where I have people like Tim France in my life who I'm like,
Mhm.
he was my guitar teacher. He was amazing.
Yeah.
He was that guy for me that was like a safe space outside of my parents and an
Mhm.
adult relationship. And I think homeschooling can, not always, but can limit that sometimes, where it's like mom and dad are like my best friends, kind of a thing. And it's like, or maybe not, or maybe, but, but I just, again, it's like cool to see that like you're involved in like your kids' education and you're like being an advocate for them of like, okay, hey,
Yeah.
these things are working. You're meeting with the teachers. You're doing, you're being a parent. You're being an involved parent. I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm like. Okay, yeah, that's what I envision as being good and healthy.
Yes, I think that's a big part of like why some people dislike public school, or they think it's bad, is, again, I can't say 100% certain, but it's the involvement of the parents in their kids' lives,
Hmm.
being involved and being a part of it, and uh, knowing who their friends are and knowing who they're talking to and knowing who they're hanging out with is a big part of why I'm comfortable them going to public school, is because I'm involved. And I know the parents of my daughter's friends, and they are very involved. They are
Right.
very much in their kids' lives. So the, I think that makes the public school experience so much better, is seeing other parents involved in their kids' lives. And you can see that in the kids. You can see that they
Right.
are happy, healthy kids. And that's really, that is the whole point of having children, is raising good, healthy kids.
If my parents can be better versions of their parents and I can be a better version of my parents, then like the next generation can be a better version of me, right? And that's what like what I'm hearing, and like I think that that's amazing. So, okay, I've got a few other questions, but so let's say someone's coming to you now, they have
Mhm.
kids, young kids, they're thinking about homeschooling them, or they're just looking at school options, and they're like, okay, Stephanie was homeschooled, she homeschooled her kids, then took them out. Like, what are you telling them when they're asking, like, okay, give me some advice on this, or give me just like your thoughts on that environment and what I should be asking questions on or looking at and exploring?
I think if someone came to me and was like, we're thinking of homeschooling, what's your advice? I think if they're cut out, they're committed and they are like gung ho on it, like give it a try. There's you can put your kid back in school, or like it's not irreversible. You can flip flop as much as you want. I think if I if they're willing to do it, all more power to you. I think it takes a certain person, and I don't think everyone's cut out for it. Um, but I don't know if I have like real advice other than like there's no harm in giving it a shot. No harm. There are really good co-op groups out
Yeah.
there. If you're worried about like socializing your children, there are so many options now than there were, back in the early 90s when we were homeschooling. So I think there are so many options, and you can put them back in school if you want to. I
Right.
really think it's not irreversible.
I think that's a great way to frame it, because I think a lot of people, they view it as this like it's a definitive decision, and it's like it's actually like
It,
not in
it's
this, in the
yeah,
same way that like my mom would switch up like the curriculum we used because it didn't work
yeah,
one year. It's like
yeah.
that, it's like not a like done deal where it's just like, okay, this is all we
It's
do
very
now.
flexible.
Yeah.
It can be very flexible where like one curriculum clicks with one kid and the other you need to buy a different curriculum because everyone learns differently. Like my daughter was very like she needed to be jumping around and like she couldn't sit still. But my son is very much like, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm gonna do my homework. So I had to teach that in two different teaching styles when I was homeschooling them. Um, and I think it's you figure out what works. And being being homeschool is very flexible. So I think that is a big plus for people who are, moving around or very outdoorsy or very, they like to go on trips a lot. Like that, bring your schoolwork with you. That's fine.
I agree. I agree. I think the flexibility is one of the biggest selling points for a lot of people,
Oh yeah.
because again, like we talked about, you get in the car, you can go somewhere. I did school at freaking Disneyland. Like I just, it's like
Yeah.
you can do whatever. You can go up in the mountains, you can go out to the beach, you can do whatever, and it's like you're not locked in a schoolhouse. What a antiquated term there. But you're not locked at school for 8 hours a day. You can actually like go out and explore, and that's really appealing. There's also the appeal of there's the downside of like, well, you also then are commit you as a parent that you're committing to every hour of my day is like with my kids and like doing this. You have to buy all in on that.
Yeah. You definitely have to be committed and stick with it if you're gonna raise educated children at home.
I was wondering too, like now that I'm a decade out, and I know you're a few years older than I am, so like has like what am I trying to say here? Has there been at all like a resurgence in you of like a love of learning, or like a desire to learn any of that stuff that you missed? Or do you feel like, okay, like I missed it, and like I just gotta like keep going on with life, and that's like it, like, and then how do you explore that? Like if you are like, okay, I want to learn this thing, like what are you doing to like educate yourself on it?
Yeah. I think the last maybe 5+ years, I would say since COVID, I have really discovered a desire to re-educate myself on topics or on history, on social issues that I had no idea about, years and years ago. And so I really do now have a desire to learn A lot of podcasts, taking a lot of podcasts, a lot of reading, documentaries, things I'm able to find something that I'm interested in, and then I can deep dive on that
Right.
and, educate myself on that topic that I never would have found interesting, when I was 15.
Right.
But now I'm like, oh, 36, I'm gonna, deep dive into 9/11,
Right.
which I was my big recent deep dives. It's like just understanding that there's more to it than what I heard and thought. And again, podcasts and books are my best friend.
I'm doing the same. Like the gaps that I have in my knowledge, I'm like, okay, like let's get some books. Let's listen to some podcasts. Let's find a good documentary. I mean, there's so much information, and what I've learned too is, I talked about this like a few weeks ago on the show. Was like I used to look at people like Ken Ham as like this like resource knowledge based
Hmm.
person, and it's really interesting now because like I've gone on his website. Nothing is sourced. Nothing like
Yeah.
there's no links to like where did you pull this information from?
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't like that as a human being anymore. Like I'm just like, oh, okay, like I need to know, like I need to be able to, like you said, deep dive into like, like Wikipedia, at the bottom of Wikipedia, how they have all
Oh
the
yeah.
links to
All
everything.
sources.
That
Yeah.
is where I go, and that is like I'm going down all of the rabbit
Yes.
holes to every little thing. Same with like documentaries. I'm like, where did they get this information and stuff like that?
Yep. Yep.
That's my obsessive educate on like a very specific niche thing
Yeah.
kind of personality. The one common thread that I've seen with like talking to just all of the homeschool community has been this fact that like we all still have this great desire to like learn things.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to attribute that specifically to the homeschooling education, but it is really cool to see that it's like we all just really want to still know things and like have
Yeah.
that desire to learn and to continue to grow as people. And so kudos to you,
Oh, well, thank
claps to
you.
you. um, is there anything else that I missed or I have forgotten that we need to touch on?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any specific homeschool memories pop into your brain while we've been talking about this? Like I always bring up like swing dance was like very impactful for me, but
Oh
like
yeah.
was there anything like that maybe was like super unique to the homeschool experience that you're like, I've never really heard anybody else like talk about it. This kind of a thing
Um,
happening.
well, that's where I learned about mimes was homeschooling. I was not, thank God, I was not a mime. I missed that by at least a year or two, and I am so thankful.
Yeah, be
Um,
thankful.
yes, yeah, the mimes. I remember at Group Solutions taking a cooking class
Okay.
called Clueless in the Kitchen. And I remember it being so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. And I wish I could remember. I remember one teacher, I think it might have been Mrs. Perez and Mrs. Waltrip. They were Group Solution
Yeah.
parents. And I think they taught the class. And I remember I took it for 2 years. So 2 years I was at Group Solutions. And I had a blast. That was my favorite class because I
Yeah.
didn't have to like read or study anything. I just had to,
Yeah. You show up, you cook a meal, then you get
chop up
to
an
eat at the
onion.
end. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. And
Yeah.
it was fun because I did take the recipes I learned and then I went home and I cooked them at home. So it
Yeah.
was fun. That was a lot of fun
Yeah.
with
I
Group
took
Solutions
that.
cooking class.
I think that class as well because I remember Mrs.
Okay.
Waltrip teaching that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, love her to death, rest in peace. But my gosh,
Okay.
she was amazing. And then the first time I had sushi was that class, which I
Oh,
mean, granted,
really?
it was
Oh,
not it was not good sushi, but but still,
we didn't cook sushi, or we don't cook sushi, but I didn't have sushi. I remember making homemade meatballs
yes,
was one of them. And
yeah,
that was really, really good.
yeah,
No sushi though.
yeah. I mean, but hey, I mean, if it gives you the incentive to be in the kitchen, you know what I mean? Like I
And
explore in the kitchen,
the,
like I'm all
yeah,
for it. I
yeah,
love cooking. So
yeah. Same as this. And I think I think it was a fun class that got kids to do something that they probably wouldn't have done before.
right. Yeah. I think
And it was,
that was one of the good things about group solutions was like you had this mix of like traditional classes, right? You could take a science
mhm,
class or a math class or whatever, but then you had
the
cooking, you had
fun
like
classes.
home ec type stuff, or you had like There was a
Yeah.
games class. Like I learned how to play poker
Yep.
at Group Solutions, which is like hilarious to think about.
Yeah.
But or like
Yeah.
they had like a Boy Scouts class and like stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was
And
just
they,
like
yeah, I've got like
this mix.
karate. And
Yeah.
then my mom did a scrapbooking class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, yeah, there's a wide range of things you could do there. And yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Some good memories. Yeah, tied in there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, this has been so much fun. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your
Oh, well,
story.
thank you.
It's,
Thank
I love it. It's what I love too is that like we have very different and unique experiences. There's obviously some common threads in there, which is
you.
great. And it's just fun to like I enjoy hearing people's stories and getting them out there because I know they're important not only for us to like hear them and be like, oh, like I'm not alone in
Right.
feeling this way,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
also I know that like there's a current generation of homeschool families that hear these things and they go, oh my gosh, I can do better or I can do it differently.
Yeah.
And recently that's been a big motivator for me to continue doing the show because it's just like your stories like yours, they're changing the way that homeschooling is happening today. So be encouraged, hopefully. And again, thank you for coming on the show. It's been so much
Thank you.
fun. Awesome. Well, for anyone listening, this has been the Ex-Homeschoolers Club. You know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, do all of the internet things that you know how to do to get this show out to the most people. If you enjoyed it, share it with a friend, share it with a loved one, share it with somebody who knows nothing about homeschooling. But yeah, until next week, we'll see ya. All right. Peace.